We all agreed, "You're not welcome at the wedding." That was the sentence. The exact words, spoken slowly, deliberately by my own mother as she looked me straight in the eye across the living room I once helped her renovate. There was no tremble in her voice, no hesitation in her gaze, just finality, and maybe even a trace of triumph. For a second, I didn't speak. I couldn't. It was like my body had disconnected from itself. My mouth was dry, but my palms were sweating. My heart? Not racing, just stunned, numb. I stood there, 32 years old, dressed in a blazer I wore straight from the office, carrying a folder of wedding details I thought we'd be reviewing together. Instead, I was being dismissed from my own sister's life, officially, permanently, and with unanimous family approval. My name is Alyssa Grant. I'm the eldest daughter in the Grant family, a senior financial consultant at a firm in downtown Denver. I manage multi-million-dollar portfolios, advise CEOs on risk management, and navigate volatile markets like it's second nature. But none of that prepared me for the emotional minefield of being told by my own mother that I was no longer welcome in my family's biggest celebration, or my sister's. The irony? I had funded most of that celebration. My younger sister Chloe and I grew up inseparable. We shared bunk beds, Halloween costumes, and heartbreaks. She made me promise, at age 12, that I would be her maid of honor when the day came. And when that day did come, when Ryan slipped a ring on her finger and she squealed down the phone, "Alyssa, it's happening. You're my MOH, right?" I didn't hesitate. I jumped in head first. Thousands of dollars, dozens of weekends, countless hours. That's what I gave to Chloe's wedding, not just as a sister, but as her confidant, her planner, her protector, only to find out too late that someone else had been rewriting my role in the story. And the woman holding the pen was our mother. Chloe was always the sunshine, blonde, bubbly, artistic, the kind of girl who turned every school project into a masterpiece and every holiday card into a watercolor. Our mom, Meredith, adored her for it. She'd brag to friends about Chloe's paintings being gallery-worthy, while calling my straight A's expected. I was the practical one, the problem solver, the responsible older sister, and that responsibility started early. When our dad, Charles, quietly removed himself from conflict by hiding behind newspapers and yard work, I became the buffer between my mother's sharp tongue and Chloe's sensitive heart. I was the one who helped Chloe finish science projects, who stayed up late helping her study for geometry when she cried over angles, who drove her to art camp in Boulder every summer even when I had internships. I didn't mind. She was my little sister, my best friend. In college, Chloe pursued art history while I chose finance. Our paths diverged, but we never lost touch. I helped her budget, reviewed her lease when she moved into her first apartment, and filled in the financial gaps when our parents forgot to send her tuition on time. I didn't resent it. Not then. It felt like love, like loyalty. Over the years, I became the unofficial treasurer of the Grant family. When the roof leaked, I arranged the contractor. When Mom's credit card debt hit $12,000, I quietly paid it off in monthly chunks so it wouldn't ruin her credit. Birthdays, holidays, emergencies, I covered it all. My salary wasn't bottomless, but I made it work. Because family meant showing up. Always. So when Chloe called me with that ecstatic, breathless voice, saying Ryan had proposed, and I was going to be her maid of honor, I felt like it had all been worth it. Everything I'd ever given. Every moment. Every dollar. I pictured us laughing over centerpieces, sipping wine while choosing bridesmaid dresses, dancing at the reception together. I was going to be her person, like always, and for a while it really felt like I was. It started small, like all shifts in power do. One weekend in March, I stopped by Mom's house for our usual wedding check-in. I had a binder of notes, vendors, sample menus, even a spreadsheet comparing venues based on guest capacity, lighting, and cost. Chloe had loved it. She even joked I should go into wedding planning. But when I walked in that day, Mom was already mid-conversation on speakerphone with the venue. The Aspen Ridge Estate, she said with a kind of rehearsed cheeriness. Yes, we'll send the deposit today. My daughter's getting married there this July. I stood there, blinking. Wait, Aspen Ridge? I thought Chloe and I were still comparing venues. Mom didn't even look at me. They had a cancellation. It's destiny. Then, turning to Chloe, she added with a smile, Sweetheart, it's the most picturesque backdrop for wedding photos. You'll look like a fairy tale. Chloe hesitated, glancing at me. It is beautiful, Liz. I bit my tongue. Maybe it was a harmless shortcut. Maybe Mom was just excited. I could adjust. But it didn't stop there. Vendors I had spent hours vetting were dismissed in favor of Meredith's friends. The lavender and ivory color palette Chloe and I had chosen turned into blush and gold overnight. The playlist we built together? Gone. Replaced by a string quartet Mom claimed was more elegant. And every time I raised a concern, Chloe would shrug with that apologetic smile. Mom's paying for a lot. It's just easier this way. I still paid for things, big things. The photographer Chloe adored, but Mom deemed too expensive. I covered the deposit. Custom welcome baskets for guests. I ordered them. I even started planning their honeymoon in secret, booking a private villa in Bali, because I wanted Chloe to feel the kind of magic she deserved. But somewhere between the decisions I made and the ones being made for me, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years, like a guest in my own sister's life, and worse, like I was being quietly replaced. I found out about the dress appointment from my co-worker. It was a Wednesday morning. I was in the break room reheating soup when Natalie, who happened to be friends with the boutique owner, smiled and said, Hey, I heard Chloe found her wedding dress. Sandra said it was love at first sight. The plastic spoon in my hand stopped midair. What appointment? Natalie's smile faded. Oh, I just assumed you were there. Your mom, Chloe, and your cousin, Sienna? They were at Elegant Moments for hours yesterday. Champagne, tears, the whole thing. Sandra said it was beautiful. I muttered something about a last-minute client call, then walked straight into the restroom and locked the door. For 10 minutes, I just stood there, staring at the white tile wall, trying to wrap my head around what I'd just heard. Chloe and I had talked about dress shopping since we were teenagers, pretending pillowcases were veils, rating bridal gowns in magazines. I was supposed to be there. It was always going to be us. That night I called her. Hey, how was the dress appointment? A pause. Too long. Oh, it just kinda happened. Mom had a fitting scheduled for Sienna and asked Chloe to tag along. We didn't think it'd be the real thing, but then she found one she loved. And no one thought to call me? I asked quietly. I didn't want to make it a big deal, Chloe said, her voice paper-thin. There will be plenty of other wedding stuff you can be part of. But there wasn't. The bridal shower? Planned without me. The bachelorette party? Organized entirely by Sienna, who picked a spa resort Chloe had zero interest in. The emails dried up. The group chats skipped me. Even our Sunday brunches faded into silence. Crazy week, she'd say, texting an hour before. Rain check. Still, I stayed involved. I confirmed the honeymoon villa, paid for upgrades, ordered matching robes for the bridesmaids, even though I hadn't been told what size to order for myself. Because deep down, I was still hoping we'd laugh about this one day, that it was all just a misunderstanding, a stressful blur she didn't know how to manage. But I was wrong, and I didn't know how wrong until that Thursday night. I showed up at my parents' house that Thursday evening with a folder full of budgets and vendor notes. I thought Chloe and I were going to have a heart-to-heart, talk through the weirdness, fix it, maybe laugh, maybe cry, but leave with clarity. Instead, I walked into a staged ambush. Dad was already in his armchair, looking more pale than usual. Chloe sat on the edge of the couch, fingers twisting in her lap. Mom stood behind her, hand perched on the backrest like she was presenting a defendant in court. And Sienna, yes, Sienna, was in my usual spot, on the armrest, smug, but trying to look concerned. What's going on? I asked, still standing, still holding my folder. Chloe, I thought this was between us. Mom was the first to speak. Of course she was. There's something you need to understand about the wedding, Alyssa, she began, her voice syrupy and condescending. We've been discussing things as a family, and we all agreed that your involvement has become problematic. I blinked. Problematic? What does that even mean? Mom smiled like she was reading from a script. Your controlling behavior, your tendency to make everything about yourself, the way you throw money around to gain influence. It's become toxic. I turned to Chloe. Is that really how you feel? She looked up at me, finally, and her expression was a tragic blend of guilt and detachment. It's just been really stressful, Alyssa. Every time you get involved, there's tension. Mom thinks, she started, but I cut in softly. What do you think, Chloe? Before she could answer, Mom stepped forward, blocking my view. What Chloe wants is a peaceful wedding, and your presence would make that impossible. I stood there, frozen. Then Mom said it, the line she'd clearly been waiting to deliver. We all agreed. You're not welcome at the wedding. Not as maid of honor, not as a bridesmaid, not even as a guest. Silence. No one moved. Not Dad, not Sienna, not Chloe. I looked at each of them, one by one, and no one said a word. So I did the only thing I could. I nodded once, turned around, and walked out the door. I didn't cry right away. Not in the car. Not even when I pulled over because the road blurred too much through my windshield. Not when I unlocked the front door of my apartment, dropped my bag, and saw Evan standing there with hope in his eyes that evaporated the second he saw my face. I only cried when I tried to speak, and nothing came out but a sound I didn't recognize. A mixture of grief, rage, and something sharper, clarity. I told him everything. The script, the smirk, the silence from Chloe. And for once, I didn't try to explain it away. I just let it be what it was, a betrayal. They can't do this, Evan said, gripping my hand. You've done nothing but support them. Apparently, I whispered, that doesn't matter. The next morning, before the sun even rose, I opened my laptop, logged into my bank. With calm fingers, I transferred $8,600, the exact amount of the honeymoon I had booked, back into my personal savings. Then I pulled up the airline confirmation, the resort contract, and the itinerary for the private chef and waterfall tour. One by one, I canceled everything. I sent the travel agent a brief message. The plans have changed. Please confirm cancellation. Then I called my credit card company. Hi. Yes. I'd like to report unauthorized charges. A family member has been using my card for purchases I never approved. It was only half a lie. I never gave Mom permission to order extra decor and upgraded linens with my card. By 7 a.m., I had untangled myself financially from the wedding I was no longer welcome at. And then I turned off my phone. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was liberating. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was chasing a moving target. I wasn't trying to fix anything. I wasn't hoping to be seen or heard or invited back in. I was simply reclaiming what was mine. The text came at 3:42 a.m. I'm so sorry, Alyssa. Mom's been lying to me. Ryan, and I just found out what she did with the honeymoon. Please call me. I need my sister back. I stared at it for a long time, not moving, not breathing. It didn't feel real. After everything, this was the first sign of Chloe cracking through the fog? The first moment she reached for me without Mom in the room? My hands shook as I put the phone down. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I needed answers before I opened my heart again. They came faster than I expected. That afternoon, my phone rang again. Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Then again. On the fourth try, I picked up. Lisa, it's Ryan. Thank God. Please don't hang up. I know everything's a mess. But you need to hear this. My voice was flat. Go on. He inhaled slowly. Your mother faked texts. She created a contact in Chloe's phone with her number, but your name. Every time you texted Chloe, she intercepted it. And then she replied to herself, pretending to be you. I froze. She showed Chloe fake conversations, told her you hated the wedding, that you thought her dress was trashy, that you were too busy with your career to help. My stomach turned, and Chloe believed that. She did, because Meredith made it believable, showed her screenshots, deleted your real messages. She even changed calendar invites to make it look like you declined everything. I didn't know what to say. And the honeymoon? I asked. Chloe didn't know, he said. Meredith told her you were holding it hostage, that you canceled it out of spite. But when the refund alert came to Chloe's email, she finally started asking questions. That's when we found everything. There was a long silence. Then he added, she's devastated. She wants to talk. She wants to fix it. I stared out the window at the Denver skyline, cold light settling over the buildings like dust. For months, I thought I was losing my sister. Turns out, she'd been taken from me, too. We met at Aunt Linda's house 2 nights later. It wasn't spontaneous. I planned every detail. I invited Dad, our grandmother, Chloe and Ryan, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Paul, the people who had the most power and the most to lose from silence. And I brought a folder. Not one full of budgets and wedding spreadsheets like before. This one held screenshots, bank transfers, email receipts, and a timeline no one could ignore. Chloe arrived first. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just softer, dimmed. Thank you for coming, I said simply. I should have come a long time ago, she whispered. When the others arrived, I didn't waste time. I placed the folder on the table, opened it, and began. I'm not here for drama. I'm here for truth. I showed them everything. The real messages I'd sent. The bank records for the honeymoon. The cancellations. The charges Mom made using my card without consent. Chloe showed them the fake texts Meredith had used to poison everything between us. Aunt Linda, watching with folded arms, murmured, she did the same thing to me before she married your father. Dad said nothing for a long time. His hands shook in his lap. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. But when I was done, when the last page had been turned, he cleared his throat. I knew some of it, he admitted, voice low. Not all, but enough that I should have said something years ago. I thought I was keeping the peace. He looked directly at me for the first time in weeks. But silence is just complicity when harm is happening. And Alyssa, I'm so sorry. I failed you. Then Mom arrived. She had been told this was a budget meeting. When she walked in and saw the circle of faces, the open folder, the tight silence, she froze. What is this? A chance, I said, to tell the truth, or at least to hear it. She didn't confess. Not immediately. She deflected, accused, played the victim. But it didn't work this time. The evidence was too clear. The room too tired of her games. And when Chloe stood up and said, if Alyssa's not in my wedding, then neither are you, something finally cracked. Even Dad, gentle, avoidant Dad, looked her in the eye and said, this stops now. The week leading up to the wedding felt like a different kind of whirlwind. Mom didn't apologize. Not really. She agreed, grudgingly, to the new boundaries. She would attend the wedding, but she would not speak with vendors, not handle any logistics, not manipulate anyone behind the scenes. She could show up, smile, sit in her assigned seat. Nothing more. She called it cruel. I called it overdue. Dad surprised me. He didn't just support the new rules, he enforced them, quietly but firmly. At first, I thought it was guilt. But one night, over tea on my balcony, he said, I'm just tired, Alyssa, of watching my daughters hurt each other to keep your mother happy. And maybe, for the first time, he was finally putting his children before the illusion of peace. As for Chloe and me, we rebuilt. Slowly. We cried through conversations. We unpacked the years Mom had pitted us against each other. We promised to be better sisters now, not perfect, but honest. I reinstated my role as maid of honor, but with a different mindset. No more overextending. No more proving. Just presence. I rebooked a smaller honeymoon package, still generous, but no longer extravagant. This is a gift, I told Chloe and Ryan. No strings, just love. The wedding was beautiful, not perfect, but real. Chloe looked radiant. Ryan cried through his vows. I stood beside my sister, bouquet in hand, no longer trying to be everything, just being me. Mom kept her distance. She smiled for the photos, but there was a stiffness in her posture, like she didn't know how to function without control. That wasn't my problem anymore. After the wedding, Chloe and I continued our healing. I started therapy, learned to say no, learned that love without boundaries isn't noble, it's self-erasure. Evan and I got engaged a few months later. When we started planning our wedding, I looked him in the eye and said, "Small committee, clear rules, no chaos." He laughed. Deal. And maybe that's what I learned most through all of this. That family doesn't mean unconditional access to your time, your money, or your soul. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, "This is where I end, and you do not get to enter without permission."